I have been wearing the Christopher Ward the 12 on my wrist for 1 week now, and I think I've got my thoughts kind of consolidated on owning it and wearing it every single day for 1 week on if this watch is worth $1,400. Today on my wrist, I'm wearing my Omega Seamaster Diver 300 with the white dial and the Omega mesh bracelet. This was my first luxury watch, and it is really closely tied as my favorite watch, but this is really creeping up on becoming my favorite watch. If for some reason you've been sleeping under a rock and you don't know about the Christopher Ward the 12, just a quick synopsis on what it is. It is a 36mm stainless steel integrated bracelet sports watch. It is time only, and there are 4 different color options. The one that I have is Frosted Lichen, which is like a minty green. I did an unboxing and a first impressions kind of video. That was the last video that I uploaded. But I wanted to give another video talking a little bit more about it after I've been experiencing this watch for a whole week now. I've got some scratches, some dings on it. I have not necessarily some memories in it, but I've worn it every day, and I've just lived my life and done life things in this watch. And I really like this watch. So on Christopher Ward's website, I think it's listed at $1,200 or in the $1,200 price range, but because I live in the United States, there's import taxes and fees on it, so in total it came out to I think $1,422. So for $1,400, what do you get? You get an excellently finished watch with a really nice dial. It has a decent Swiss-made movement. The movement isn't anything to like brag about or write home about, but it is good and reliable. But in my opinion, why you pay the price that you do for this watch is in the finishing. The finishing is really, really nice. It has brushed surfaces, polished surfaces, and a little bit of like a bead blasted, like sand blasted finish. So there's 3 different finishes on this watch. If you include the finish on like the bridges of the movement, I would say there's probably technically 4 different finishes, because on the little bridges there's not Geneva stripes, but there's like a striping type of texture on the inside of the movement on all of the bridges. And overall, I think for $1,400, if you want a PRX that has a better finish in a smaller size, and maybe you just want like a certain dial color, in that rare instance, I do think that it's worth it. And a week on the wrist has proven that I think for me, it is exactly what I was looking for in an integrated bracelet watch. The one thing I've noticed, especially comparing it to the PRX, is on the clasp, it has like hollowness on the inside of the clasp, and I don't know if this is the reason for it or not, but on my PRX, whenever I would wear it, it would start to pinch on the inside of my wrist, and it would just hurt if I wore it all day long. But on this watch, even when my wrist swells when it's really hot outside, there's no discomfort in the clasp. I don't know if that's just that this has a better fit on my wrist because of like the size of the links, or if it is the fact that is hollow in the middle of the clasp. I don't know the reasoning, but on my wrist I get no discomfort from wearing this 24 hours a day. No discomfort. It fits and wears perfectly. The weight feels good. It makes it feel like it's a quality watch without it being like overbearingly heavy, kind of like my Seamaster. My Seamaster is a big watch. It's 42mm, and I don't know how much it weighs, but I can feel it on my wrist for the majority of the day when I'm wearing it. Whereas when I'm wearing the 12, I don't even notice that it's on my wrist once it's on my wrist. For me, there's something about a time-only watch that is just more suited for me personally in a daily, day-to-day wear. It doesn't really make sense because usually when I'm looking at the time, especially when I would wear my Seamaster every day, I would be looking at the date more than I would be even looking at the time. This sounds a little crazy, but to me there's just something so raw about having a watch that is time only. It's just so simple and down to the basics of why I'm wearing a watch that makes me enjoy wearing a time only watch day to day. This watch does that perfectly for me. I'm really tending to start to like smaller sized watches, and this being at 36mm, wearing possibly even a little bit smaller than 36 because of how aggressive that bracelet tapers. I just find it really enjoyable to wear day to day because it doesn't feel like this big monstrosity on my wrist, and me having little baby girly wrists, I can pull off a bigger watch in my opinion, but only if it's like a dive watch or a chronograph or something that's a bit more complicated. But if a watch is going to be time only, I want it to be no bigger than 38, and this has been doing that perfectly. $1,400 is definitely not an insignificant amount of money. For that same price roughly, I got my PRX chronograph. And I guess if you're comparing it to that in terms of complications in the movement, value for money is much, much more on Tissot's side. I don't know how Tissot does what they do. My guess is probably in just the finishing and the bracelet quality. That's kind of where they don't necessarily cut corners, but it's not as refined, I would say, as the Christopher Ward is. But the movement and the bang for the buck in a PRX is nuts. So the value for this watch, I would say, is you get what you pay for if you care about finishing. Like, summed up, that's what I would say. It's definitely not for everyone, but for me, day to day, this watch has been awesome. Testing it for accuracy, roughly, I would have to kind of do the math, but I set it 30 seconds slow at the beginning of the week, and at the end of the week, as it sits right now, I think it's running roughly like 20 something seconds fast. So I would have to do the math on that, but it's gaining roughly 8 to 7, like let's just say 6 to 8 seconds a day it's gaining. So obviously it's not COSC certified, it's just a Sellita SW200. But for me, it would be a lot cooler if it was more accurate, of course. But it's not a gripe by any means. This watch it's just a simple time only watch. It's mechanical, it's awesome. But yeah, those are just kind of my overviews on the Christopher Ward the 12 after wearing it for a week on the wrist. Do I think it's worth it? For me, yeah. For you, maybe not. I think I'm going to be making a video upcoming on my Seamaster on my thoughts on it after owning it for, I think it's been almost 7 months now. It's getting close. It's just such a good watch. It's really good. Anyway, I'm kind of blabbering, but thanks for watching this video. Goodbye.